Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for our Congressional Candidate Forum in New York's 16th District. Our forum today will be focused on issues for those 50 and older, sponsored by AARP New York. We are excited today to be joined by Congressman George Latimer and his opponent, Dr. Miriam Levitt Flisser. Our moderator today is Rex Smith, former editor of the Albany Times-Union and now at the Upstate American Substack. Special thanks to our sponsors, AARP New York. We have AARP New York's Associate State Director for Community Engagement, Robin Haberman, joining us for some opening remarks. Robin, take it away.
Thank you, JP and Empire Report, for hosting this forum with Dr. Miriam Levitt Flisser and Westchester County Executive George Latimer. Our population here in New York State is aging rapidly, and many older New Yorkers are primarily concerned over two issues that are vital to their health and well-being: Social Security and caregiving. If Washington doesn't take action in 10 years, Social Security benefits could be cut by 20%, an average of $4,000 a year for each beneficiary. For most New Yorkers, losing 1/5 of their income would be a hardship. For older New Yorkers living on a fixed income, it would be devastating. It is time for both parties to come together and agree on a solution to fix the Social Security shortfall so we can protect the financial security of current and future generations. As for caregiving, families across New York State are overstressed financially, physically, and emotionally when it comes to providing daily care for their older adult loved ones who want to remain in their own homes and communities where they prefer to be. Family caregivers need help to provide the essential care that allows their spouse, parent, or grandparent to live safely and independently at home and not be placed in a nursing home or other adult care facility. Our elected officials can help the helpers by giving their support to programs that offer assistance to the family caregivers who do so much for our older loved ones, friends, and neighbors. Most of those family caregivers are people age 50 and older, people AARP advocates for every day. And you know what? People 50 plus vote. In fact, older adults decide elections at every level. That's something our candidates for public office need to keep in mind in the run-up to the November elections. With that, it is my pleasure to turn the floor over to your moderator for today, Rex Smith.
Well, thanks very much, Robin, and I want to welcome you all to this candidate forum and say a special thanks to the candidates for showing up, Dr. Flisser and Mr. Latimer. Just an explanation of what the ground rules are. This is not a debate. It is actually a forum in which we'll just go through a few questions over the next few minutes. The answers for each question will be limited to 2 minutes after we get beyond 2-minute opening statements. There won't be any interaction among the candidates. That is, they won't be able to ask each other questions. They won't even appear on the screen at the same time. I should say that if a candidate goes over time, if somebody gets a little too talkative, I'll ask the technicians to turn off the microphone. So let's please keep that in mind. With that in mind, we're going to get underway then, please. And so we launch with 2-minute opening statements. The first is Dr. Flisser. Here's Dr. Miriam Levitt Flisser.
Good morning. It's wonderful to be here today. I'm Dr. Miriam Levitt Flisser, and my office is in Bronxville, New York, where I practice medicine. I am also a member of the voluntary staff at Montefiore Hospital in the Bronx and the New York Presbyterian Hospital. I'm a volunteer for FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which I know you've heard a lot of news about lately. And I was the first woman to be elected the chief of staff at Lawrence Hospital in Bronxville. And I've also served as the mayor, the police commissioner, and the fire commissioner in my hometown of Scarsdale, New York. I'm running because I think it's time that one of us goes to Congress and represent the regular people here. You deserve to be safe. You deserve a secure border. You deserve a government that makes sensible use of our tax money. I wasn't born in America. I was born in Europe, and I was smuggled out, hidden under a mail truck by my parents. The first time that I saw the Statue of Liberty was on a Marine troop ship. We waited for 2 years going through the immigration process in Germany, and then we were brought to America by U.S. Marines, for whom I have wonderful feelings. In addition, that was the first time that I saw the Statue of Liberty, which moved me. Even though I was a little girl, I remember it very well. And so I am a patriot that is very much motivated by the American standards. And one of the things that's bothering me is that I feel that we've dropped our standards, that we are no longer predominant in the world, that we're under pressure, and that we can no longer take care of our people the way that we had planned to do. So that is something that I wish to help by going to Washington, and I hope that you will send me there.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Flisser. We now go for a 2-minute opening statement to Mr. Latimer.
Thank you very much, Rex. It's an honor to be with you here today and the opportunity to talk about some of these issues. I have currently serve as Westchester County Executive, running a government that has direct responsibility for a variety of programs, and as far as seniors are concerned, for our Department of Senior Services and Programs, and also our Department of Social Services. I have previously served in the New York State Senate and New York State Assembly. I've established a record focused on accomplishment in these areas. And I think that's very important, because what we have in Washington is sort of a performance art effort where people talk about theories and ideas and feelings, but they don't translate that into hard policies and programs that benefit people. I'm a senior citizen myself. I'm 70, just short of my 71st birthday. And I understand personally, as well as with my peer group, just what kind of pressures are on seniors in the society where things are very difficult and unaffordable for those that don't have certain benefits. That's why as county executive, I fought for affordable housing for seniors. We built a number of different units along those lines in Westchester County. That's why during my tenure as a state senator, I voted for the nation's strongest, most comprehensive paid family leave that involved things that were necessary for caregiving benefits. And I look to go to Washington not to make speeches and not to talk thematically about things. I think the current Republican House majority is not committed to protecting Social Security benefits nor protecting Medicare negotiations on prescription drugs. And I go to Washington to be a strong fighter and a substantive person to try to deal with these issues in the days to come.
Okay. Thanks very much, Mr. Latimer. Those are the opening statements. And now we go to a series of questions. And just a reminder, we will have 2 minutes for each person, for each candidate to answer those questions. So the first question, the opening will be by Mr. Latimer first. Here's the question for both of you. The Social Security Trust Fund, is expected to see a shortfall in just 10 years. So that if Congress doesn't act, millions of Americans who are counting on Social Security will see cuts to the money they've earned. So the question is, do you see a path for Congress to work on a bipartisan solution to protect Social Security for those who've earned it? And what might that path be? The first answer, Mr. Latimer.
Thanks, Rex. I do believe there is a bipartisan path, and it revolves around Republicans as well as Democrats being committed to working together across the aisle. We've seen much greater partisanship in Washington than we need to see. In governing in Westchester County, we've worked bipartisanly to deal with complicated issues, and we've shown that we can solve problems if we think forward. In the next year, we're going to be dealing with the reauthorization of the Trump tax cuts that lost our SALT benefit in New York and elsewhere, and then also gave deep discounts in taxes to those who are very wealthy and major corporations. That is the beginning source of what we have to look at for revenue, to restructure those tax cuts in a way that will be beneficial to the long-term protection of Social Security. Social Security is a commitment made years ago, but it's also something that we each contribute to over the years. And to change the rules of the game arbitrarily, as I have heard some of the Republican House leadership talk about, is wrong. We need to be able to project ahead how we're going to protect future generations if we want people who are now working to contribute into that system with a sense of faith and trust. It is difficult to do that. I think we have to look at exactly how we deal with disabled persons, as well as those who are able-bodied that are contributing to Social Security. I do think that the benefits of Social Security is just a baseline, and those that have to rely then on pensions and what they're able to save and invest become important contributing parts to a senior's financial health. But without Social Security as a baseline to cut back on those benefits, it would be a terrible mistake. And I do believe there's a path if we're willing to work across the aisle and excuse some of the hard partisanship that I've seen projected in Washington these days.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Latimer. We now go to Dr. Flisser. The same question about Social Security, a bipartisan solution. Is there a path forward?
Of course, Social Security is a way that we have all invested for our future. I remember starting to pay mine when I was like 15 years old. And of course, I expect that to be there to supplement my income or be my total income if necessary during those ages when it's needed. And I do believe in bipartisan path for practically everything. I can't think of too many places where people can't discuss under the roof of the United States Congress on different sides of the aisle to get something done right. I have to say that if we divert our money and we don't make sensible use of our taxes and we divert our money to folks that have not placed money into the system, then how can it possibly be sustainable? It becomes unsustainable. So we have to be careful about that and make sure that we protect the money that's there for this reason. I do have to say one more thing, which is that last week I certified at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in a program to help with food deficiencies for patients at the hospital who were learned to be food deficient at home. I learned how to do this, and it really bothered me because aside from the small children, the next group that has most food deficiency are people over 65, and that is frightening. Obviously, they should not be in that position, and something has to be done so that they're not a major requirer of charitable food contributions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Flisser. That is the end of the first question. Let's talk about question 2. The first answer on this one will be for Dr. Flisser. Here's an amazing statistic. 48 million Americans currently help their loved ones each day to remain in their homes, independent in their homes and communities. These family caregivers really sacrifice time and money and provide basically about $600 billion annually in unpaid support. So the question is, how would you in Congress help family caregivers? Dr. Flisser, might you start?
Yes, absolutely. I'd like to tell you that my mother, may she rest in peace, lived to be 98. She never lived more than 2 blocks. I never lived more than 2 blocks away from her down the street. And I was able to maintain her in her own home for her life, which is exactly what she wanted. And I had a wonderful group of caregivers who took care of her. And they became part of our family. We helped them become American citizens. My mother tutored them for the American citizenship test. And all in all, it was the most wonderful part of my caretaking of my mother. And so naturally, I think this is an issue that we should resolve in favor of both the people who need the care and the caretakers. I don't understand why this can't work. We can't ignore the fact that folks need to be in their own homes. It's better for them. They have a better life there, and they do have longer. And also, there should be tax credits available for people who are helping their families out the way I did. I used to get over there sometimes quicker than anyone else because I have a 2-minute response time. So I do support this. I think it's a very important issue. I went through it with my family, and I hope that we all get a chance to do it, to live long nearby, and to make sure that the people who take care of us are able to do so.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Flisser. Same question for Mr. Latimer. How would you help family caregivers in Congress?
Well, Rex, I think we all agree that it's an important issue, and we can talk thematically about the issue. But the real question is, what will we do specifically and substantively to make this happen? You've covered Albany very closely in your career. You know that in 2016, New York State passed one of the strongest comprehensive paid family leave programs. And what that did was to provide 67% of average weekly wage to those people who directly had caregiving responsibilities. And that is a prototype for what we need to do in Washington. We need to look at legislation that would provide that type of benefit to give the financial assistance to the caregivers that will allow them to do that. For those of us who have had those responsibilities, my mother-in-law lived to the age of almost 91, and was part of the nuclear family. And we were able to do that, but we were able to do that given our family resources. Every family doesn't have those resources. And that's why we've worked in Westchester County government to contract with various local not-for-profit agencies. That is the prototype of what we need to do in terms of federal legislation. We need to make an example of what we've tried to do in New York, an example of what we can do nationally, and to try to find that bipartisan support around policies that had bipartisan support in Albany and need to have the same type of substantive response in Washington. Everything else is sympathizing and understanding the issue, but not directly attacking the issue where it needs to be attacked, which is in legislation and in funding.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Latimer. Let's go on to the next question, which is about prescription drug prices. I think many of us will agree that the cost of prescription drugs has really gotten out of control. Americans are paying 2 or 3 times more than people in other countries pay for the same prescription drugs. Now, as a result of some recent federal legislation, Medicare has finally begun the process of negotiating the prices of 10 of the most common drugs with the pharmaceutical industry. And those changes have also set caps on some out-of-pocket costs for those in Medicare, and resulted in some major manufacturers agreeing to cap insulin, for example, at $35 per month for all consumers. So the question really becomes, do you support these reforms? But moreover, what more can the federal government be doing to address the high cost of prescription drugs? And the first answer on this one goes to Mr. Latimer, please.
Well, Rex, you referred to the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, IRA, which really, for the first time, put the federal government strongly on the side of individuals who are trying to get prescription costs down. And the cap on insulin is very important, as well as the general understanding that the federal government needs to use its buying power influence to be able to influence pharmaceutical companies to moderate their costs. My concern is that there is movement in the Republican House majority to amend this and change this and perhaps lift that $35 cap and to do other things that would undermine this. And I'm concerned that if you do have Republican Senate and a Republican House and a Republican president, they'll step back away from the protections that are there. So the first thing that we have to do is reaffirm our support for those provisions that you've just alluded to, the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. There was some bipartisan support for that act, but it wasn't universal. It was primarily Democrats that advanced it with some Republican support. And I think we have to fight to accommodate that. There's further that we can do through the administration. A federal administration, the executive branch under the direction of the next president, can advance the drug lists and advance the negotiations that would go on between the federal government agencies and those pharmaceutical companies. That has to advance, because you can have a certain amount of money that you've set aside to live on, and even with your pensions, and then your health costs can go through the roof, and prescription drugs become an impossible permanent level of spending that most people can't be able to reach. So I would protect the gains that were made in 22, and I would try to expand them through executive action, and if necessary, legislative action, and resist any effort by the Republican House or a future Republican Senate to reverse those advantages.
Okay, thank you. The same question for Dr. Flisser. Do you support the legislative changes that led to these caps, and what more can the federal government do to address the high cost of prescription drugs?
Thank you. As a physician, you know that I deal with prescription drugs all the time, and I'm quite aware of the costs of them. There are many things that we can do in addition to the legislation that was reviewed, which I do believe that we should do the best we can, of course, to keep the drug prices down and negotiate for them. We are, I would say, large customers, so we should be able to do that. I'd like to point out that much of this money goes to countries outside of the United States of America, where the drugs are made. And we can improve our position. Many years ago, in Puerto Rico, a tremendous amount of our antibiotics and other critical medications were produced, and that all that work was sent overseas, and it's not there now, and it hurts our folks who needs this kind of work, and it hurts the product, and it hurts the consumer. So that's an aspect for the federal government to allow licensure for the United States to make the medications, people in the United States to make the medications. And I think that's very important. And of course, I feel that this is not a political issue. It's a home issue, and we all have to work on it together.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Flisser. We'll go now to the next question, which has to do with housing. I think it's safe to say that affordable housing has been an ongoing issue in New York State. And it is a particular concern to aging New Yorkers who, by and large, want to remain in their own homes and their communities. So the question comes as to what you might be able to do in Congress to help our older loved ones be able to remain in their own homes where they might prefer to be. The first person to answer that one goes to Dr. Flisser.
I think maintaining people in the homes, maintaining people in their own homes is a major part of this whole discussion, right? We feel that's the best place for people. So certainly I'm in favor of that. This involves the legitimate use of our tax money and changes in our taxes so that they may get tax abatements, which, as you know, clearly we've just improved, but should always be kept on the top level. In addition, there has to be very good maintenance issues. That is, they have to be sure that the homes are maintained properly, because there have to be regulations on this as well, because we don't want people in unsafe homes. And I think that's something that they will need aid with as well.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Flisser. So same question to Mr. Latimer. What might you do in Congress to help older Americans be able to stay in their own homes?
Well, Rex, it's important to look at what we've done already in Westchester County over the course of my 7-year administration. We've added 2,500 units of affordable housing, much of which has been senior housing. We've opened up additional senior housing units in Portchester, in Greenburgh, just opened one earlier this summer in Yonkers. We have another 4,000 in the pipeline. We've taken county money and coupled with state money to be able to incent these projects. $5.7 million in land acquisition to build senior housing units in Yonkers and in Upstate that are on the book. So we put our money and our energy where our philosophy is in trying to advance senior housing. The federal government needs to do more, and it needs to do more through housing and urban development. The money that we allocate to that department and how they then turn around and incent various projects around the country is important, and it's particularly important because the federal government, through the Section 8 program, has subsidies that follow the individual, not just the unit. What a county and a state can do takes you so far in assuring affordability, but the federal government is the essential third partner to be able to make those advancements. And we have in this district a challenge to build affordable housing because our land is not easily available. We're not dealing with large open tracts of land as you might be dealing with in other parts of the country. But I think I've proven that I know how to get housing units on board. There are people today who are living in affordable housing units who are senior citizens that were not doing that a number of years ago. And my commitment will be to try to follow federal policy to match what's happening locally to accomplish more availability of senior housing.
Okay, thank you. Now, our commitment to the candidates is that this is a 30-minute forum. We're a little bit ahead of schedule, so I'm going to use the prerogative and say that your closing remarks can be 2 minutes long instead of 1 minute. We go in the reverse order from where we started. So for a 2-minute closing remarks, let's go to Mr. Latimer.
Thanks very much, Rex, and thanks to the AARP organization for having this opportunity for us to share our views. I have spent the last number of years of my life in government, getting results in government. I think we are too often looking at philosophies rather than actual accomplishments. And during Westchester, my time as county executive and what I've done previously in the state and county legislatures, I've proven my commitment to programs that affect seniors. We have done an extensive amount of things that we didn't talk about in some of these issues, senior law days to try to put legal assistance to seniors that may not be able to afford it and yet can use it to avoid evictions in those circumstances. And as well, many of the ways to connect people, to deal with mental health issues that seniors may have, the loneliness that happens when you're living alone, programs that link adults who are seniors with young kids in cooperative programs. All of those things are innovative efforts that we've proven, which shows you who I am and what I believe in. To go to Washington, you need a person who's going to go down there, be skilled in the area of legislation, to work with other people on both sides of the aisle to accomplish these things that we talk about in theoretical terms. I believe I've shown that commitment, and I would appreciate the support of those individuals to give me that opportunity to do what I've done in county government and state government and bring that same mindset into the federal government and the House of Representatives.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Latimer. We now go for 2 minutes of closing remarks to Dr. Flisser.
Thank you. Thank you very much for hosting this today. It's been really wonderful to discuss it. I would like to make it clear that it's important that our founding fathers stated that the representatives of us in government should not be lifetime representatives. They should go home and work on their farms. Well, we don't have that much farm work here in Westchester, but I am not a politician. I'm a physician. And when I go back, I hear the stories and I know everything that goes on. And that's very important. I also like to point out that we are faced with a problem of influx of high cost immigrants into our county that have been welcomed here. There are many rules that allow them to take the funds that we have set aside. And although I would like to be fair, I think it's important for us to know that our senior citizens are depending on these funds, and they can't be diverted away from those of us who have put the money in and expect it to be there in our older years. So please vote for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Flisser. In fact, let me just thank both candidates at this point, at the end of this, the candidate of the Republican Party, Dr. Miriam Levitt Flisser, and the Democratic candidate, George Latimer. We're really grateful to you for giving us the time, and we'll turn this back to the AARP with gratitude for the opportunity to share these views with voters today. Thank you all.
Wow, that was awesome. Thank you so much to our moderator, Rex Smith. You can find Rex at upstateamerican.com. Thank you to the candidates. You both did a great job. And thank you especially to our sponsor, AARP New York. For more information, please visit www.aarp.org and empirereportnewyork.com. Thank you again for joining.